Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Connecticut Department of Transportation's public information meeting for project number 145106, the rehabilitation of Bridge 848 carrying Route 89 over I-84 in the towns of Union and Ashford. I do apologize for our late start tonight. We did have a little bit of technical difficulties getting started, so I appreciate everybody's patience. My name is Stephanie Maurer. I'm a project engineer with the Connecticut Department of Transportation. I would like to welcome everyone who's taken the time to tune in tonight. We hope that it'll be informative and that we are able to address all of your questions so that at the conclusion of the presentation, you'll have a better understanding of our project. Before I get started, I want to go through a couple of housekeeping items and explain our format tonight. Our presentation will last approximately 20 minutes, and once it's completed, we will have a live question and answer session. A recording of tonight's entire presentation, including the Q&A session, will be stored on the project webpage. The webpage can be found at portal.ct.gov/DOT Union 145-106. Closed captioning, including non-English translations, will be available at that time. You'll have 3 means of communicating with us during the live Q&A session. You can send an email, leave a voicemail, or chat with us using the Zoom Q&A feature. I'll go over these in more detail later. A voluntary post-meeting survey is available at portal.ct.gov/CTDOT survey. The results of this survey will help us improve these public meetings going forward, and we would appreciate it if you would take the time to complete the survey after tonight's presentation. The civil rights notice to the public is available at portal.ct.gov/business/office-of-title-vi-page. The links to both of the civil rights flyer and the survey are also located on the previously mentioned project webpage. And Dan is throwing those links into the chat, so you guys should be able to access those through the chat. The Connecticut Department of Transportation operates its programs and services without regard to race, color, and national origin in accordance with the Title VI of the Civil Rights Act. Any person who believes she or he has been aggrieved by any unlawful discriminatory practice under Title VI may file a complaint with the Connecticut Department of Transportation. For more information on Connecticut Department of Transportation Civil Rights Program and procedures to file a complaint, contact Deborah Goss, the DOT Title VI Coordinator, at 860-594-2169. A complainant may file a complaint directly with the Federal Transit Administration or the Federal Highway Administration by filing a complaint with the FTA or FHWA Office of Civil Rights. Attention, Title VI Program Coordinator. All relevant addresses to file a complaint are listed on this slide. A recording of this presentation will be posted online for further access to this information. Again, a recording of this presentation will be available on YouTube, and closed captioning will be available both on Zoom and YouTube. As I mentioned earlier, there will be 3 means of communicating with the project team. The first is by sending an email to the project email address, which is dotproject145106@ct.gov. That's dotproject 0145-0106@ct.gov. And Dan is also throwing that link in the chat. The second is by leaving a voicemail at 860-594-2020. Please note that we will be checking for emails and voicemails periodically during the presentation so that we can address your comments and answer your questions at the end. Please also remember to leave contact information if you leave a voicemail so that we can reach out to you directly if for any reason we can't get back to you during the live question and answer session. Please also leave the project number that you're leaving the voicemail for, 145106. You can ask questions or provide comments through March 27th, 2024 via email or phone. That is 2 weeks from today on a Wednesday. I will go over the third option, the Zoom chat function next. This function is only available during tonight's live Q&A session. So to ask a question or make a comment using the Zoom Q&A feature, click on the Q&A tool at the bottom of the Zoom webinar window. Depending upon your settings on your computer, you may need to hover at the bottom or sometimes even the top or the sides of your screen to bring that bar up to be able to click on the Q&A tool. That tool will bring up the Zoom Q&A chat window. You can type your question in the text box at the bottom. Once you finish typing, you can hit send and the project team will see your question. On the screen, you'll see your question and any other questions that have already been answered. Please note that even though you won't see them yet, the project team may have other questions to respond to, and we'll do our best to answer all questions in the order they are received. I would now like to introduce the project team. With the Connecticut Department of Transportation, we have on the top left, Bart Sweeney, the Division Chief of Bridges. To his right, Derek Lassard, Principal Engineer of the Consultant Bridge Design Consultant Liaison Engineering Program. Francisco Farul, Supervising Engineer in the CLE program in the bottom right. And my photo, Stephanie Maurer, is on the bottom left as the project engineer. GM2 is the consultant liaison engineer on this project and will work with the department to provide engineering support throughout the design and construction of the project. The first photo on the left is Rich Armstrong, the program manager for GM2. To his right, we have Dennis Garceau, the project lead. You'll hear from Dennis as the presentation this evening progresses. A. DeCesar Associates is the design engineer on this project and will work with the CLE and the Department of Transportation to bring the design to completion. The photo on the left is Julie Georges. Julie is the project director for ADA. Art DeCesar is the project manager from ADA, and his photo is on the right. Dan Carnine with GN2 will be the MC for the Q&A portion of tonight's presentation. Thank you for bearing with me while I went over the ground rules, and now I will turn it over to Dennis.
All right, thank you, Stephanie. Again, my name is Dennis Garceau. I am the project manager and work for GM2 Associates, who is the Connecticut DOT's consultant liaison engineer. Tonight, as far as the agenda goes, I am going to first perform a formal presentation of the design process. Through that presentation, we'll explain the condition of the existing bridge and describe the project's purpose and need, present the proposed scope of work, and explain the anticipated project benefits and impacts of the project. And at the end of the presentation, we'll open the forum up to your comments and questions. This particular slide shows basically a location map with showing essentially the bridge number 00848 at the center of this map, which carries US Route 89 over Interstate 84 in both the towns of Ashford and Union. The bridge is actually sliced in half right at the town line, with Union to the north, Ashford to the south. The couple key features is Netmonk State Forest is to the west of the project, and Maury Pond Road is in close proximity to the east limits of the project. This particular slide is showing a aerial bird's eye view of the project area. Again, focusing on the bridge in the center of this aerial, bridge number 00848, which is flanked on both of the approaches with the on and off ramps to I-84 westbound, and also I-84 on and off ramps for I-84 eastbound. Also to note is the Ashford Motel Road, which is just to the north, and the frontage road, which is just to the south. This particular diagram is just to get you familiarized with some of the key bridge components that we'll be discussing throughout the presentation tonight. Starting with basically the parapets is basically those short walls that are on the top of the bridge that protect vehicles from going off the bridge. And the deck is basically the riding surface for the bridge, which is supported underneath by beams. And the beams in the deck actually make up what we call the superstructure of the bridge, which carries the loads from one end of the bridge to the other. And the superstructure is supported by the substructure components, which are made up of abutments and wing walls at each end of the bridge. And in this case, for this particular site, there is a center pier located in the median of I-84. A couple of things to note on the slide is that every 2 years, the Connecticut DOT does a inspection of this bridge and all other bridges throughout the state of Connecticut. And they basically prepare a bridge inspection report, which notes the different conditions of each of these components. And it's rated on a scale of 1 to 9, as shown on the right here. 1 as the imminent failure, up to 9, which is an excellent condition. Some of the things to talk about as far as the existing structure itself, again, carries Route 89 over Interstate 84. It's a 2-span structure with 96-foot spans each. Was built originally in 1958. Carries 2 lanes of traffic with approximately 900 vehicles per day based on the year 2020 counts. The existing curb-to-curb bridge roadway width is 38 feet, and the out-to-out width is 43 feet 8 inches. The bridge is comprised of reinforced concrete decks supported by a continuous steel beam superstructure, supported on 2 concrete abutments and a center pier. This slide basically shows some photos of some of the key deficiencies for the bridge. The photo on the top left is showing the typical peeling paint, laminated rust, and section loss to the webs and bottom flange, which is common for the structure. The photo to the right, top right, is showing one of the diaphragms, which has a rusted through hole in the lower angle. Photo on the bottom left shows a picture of the underside of the reinforced concrete deck, showing a large spall with exposed rebar and some hollow areas along the perimeter. The bottom photo on the right is basically showing repairs that were done to repair a collision damage that occurred back in October of last year. Actually was hit by a truck from underneath, and those repairs were done shortly thereafter that event. Purpose and need of the project is to address the structural deficiencies as noted on the previous slide, and also correct the substandard vertical clearance of bridge number 00848, and ultimately to provide a structure that accommodates safe travel for all vehicles, vehicular traffic, both on and that cross under the bridge as well. Project goals are to improve the condition rating of the superstructure, currently rated a 4, which is poor, to a 7 or greater condition, which is good to excellent. Also, we want to make sure to improve the load carrying capacity of the bridge. Also improve the existing vertical clearance of 14 foot 11 feet to current standards of 16 foot 3 inches. And it's also important that during construction, we want to minimize disruption to traffic. This slide is basically showing a plan view of the overall limits of the project scope of work, which includes the full replacement of the existing bridge, the new bridge, and to accommodate, basically to obtain that vertical clearance necessary of 16 foot 3 over I-84 eastbound and westbound. The roadway will have to be raised approximately 6 inches in the vicinity of the bridge. To do that, there'll be approximately 600 linear feet of full depth roadway reconstruction performed to basically tie in the proposed work with the existing at the limits, the very limits, both the south and west limits. There's going to be some milling and low overlay that has to be done. Approximately 150 linear feet on each end. The other thing that will be incorporated in this project is the complete streets policy that was introduced by the department back in August of last year. With the intent of that policy is to not only design projects for vehicular traffic, but also to safely accommodate both pedestrian and bicycle traffic as well. As part of this project, which is shown basically in green and also in those red hatch areas, we're going to be providing buffered shoulders, which will begin just north of the frontage road on the southerly limit and extend through the project all the way to the intersection with Route 190 on the northerly limit. Next slide. This slide is basically showing an aerial view, which shows the overall limits of those new buffered shoulders that will be added, again, starting just north of Frontage Road, passing through the project area, and then further north past Ashford Motel Road all the way to the intersection of Route 190, that is. This plan is basically showing a blow-up view of the actual bridge plan. Some of the things to note, basically be providing the two 11-foot travel lanes, which are shown in gray. Again, there'll be the buffered areas, which will vary from 2 feet at each approach. And basically on the easterly side, it'll vary from 2 feet to 8 feet across the bridge. And on the westerly side, that would be a constant 2-foot buffered area. And what's shown in green is basically the shoulder area, which is approximately 5 feet. This is basically showing a detail of what it would look like if you're standing down in the median and looking basically west, with eastbound traffic on your left, westbound traffic on your right. Main thing to point out that minimum vertical clearance will meet the new standard, which is 16 foot 3 over the full width of both the eastbound and westbound of I-84. Next slide. This is basically showing a slice through the superstructure, which is comprised of the steel beams and the concrete deck and parapets, which are basically the concrete deck and parapets are shown in dark gray. The beams are shown in the orange. And the other thing to note is the proposed bituminous overlay, which is shown in the gray hatched area. Again, the proposed structure will accommodate two 11-foot travel lanes, a 7-foot buffered shoulder on the bridge on the westerly side, and a 13-foot wide buffered shoulder on the easterly side of the bridge. During construction of the bridge will be constructed in 2 stages, and one lane of alternating traffic with signal controls will be maintained during construction. Essentially, during the first stage, the westerly half of the bridge will be removed, and then in the westerly half of the new bridge will be constructed. Prior to doing that, the traffic will be shifted to maintain one lane of alternating traffic with signal controls on the easterly portion or easterly half of the existing bridge. And this is basically showing what happens during the second stage. The traffic will then be shifted to the new westerly portion that was built, or half, and the contractor will then continue to remove the remaining half of the existing structure and build the second half of the new structure. And in the final condition, basically get the full width, the new structure, which is 2 11-foot lanes, the 7-foot buffered shoulder on the westerly side, and the 13-foot buffered shoulder on the easterly side. Other thing to note is that during construction, there are some construction activities that will require both Route 89 and I-84 to be closed for short durations, which would typically, those are scheduled to occur during the night when there's less traffic volumes and so forth. And to accommodate basically the traffic being closed on I-84, basically the traffic will be detoured to the exit and on ramps on both sides of the northbound and the southbound accordingly. When the traffic needs to be closed for swinging, basically doing any overhead work with cranes, like the removal of the existing beams and the placement of the new beams. Also, there'll be short-term closures during the short-term closures for Route 89. Basically, for traffic that wants to, that's on the south side of the closed bridge, want to get to the north side, they will have to basically be detoured utilizing the on-ramp for I-84 eastbound, heading eastbound, getting off at the ramp at exit 73, crossing over the Connecticut 190 overpass, and then getting back on to I-84 westbound, heading westbound, getting off the exit 72 ramp, and then you're able to head north. And that's approximately a detour length of 3 miles. Then if for traffic that is located on the north side and you want to get to the south side of the bridge that is closed, you'll have to use the I-84 westbound on-ramp, head westerly and get off at exit 71, cross the Connecticut 320 Ruby Road overpass, and then get back on the on-ramp, utilizing the on-ramp for I-84 eastbound, head easterly, get off at exit 72, and then you can head south on Connecticut 89. That detour length is approximately 9 miles. Other additional project information, during construction, there'll be temporary relocation of overhead utilities required. As far as right-of-way is concerned, there'll be all the proposed work will be done within the state right-of-way, so there'll be no temporary or permanent property impacts. For environmental, all the work will be done in a non-regulated area, So no wetlands or watercourses will be impacted. However, we're required to get a Connecticut Deep general permit for the discharge of stormwater and dewatering wastewaters from construction activities, or other known as a construction stormwater general permit, will be required. As far as the schedule and cost, we're anticipating construction to start in August of 2025. It will last 2 construction seasons and is anticipated to end in August of 2027. The anticipated construction cost is approximately 13.5 million. This project is 80% federally funded and 20% state funded, and there will be no cost to the towns. And now I'll open it up. Basically, Dan Cardian will be presenting this next slide, and will also lead the question and answer session period. Thank you.
Thank you, Dennis. As Dennis mentioned, I'll be assisting with tonight's live Q&A session. At this time, all attendees are encouraged to submit questions regarding tonight's presentation using the methods shown here on the screen. Questions and comments can be submitted to the project email address, which is dotproject0145-0106@ct.gov, and also by phone voicemail at the number 860-594-2020. Please reference project number 145106, and please leave your contact information in any voicemails. Attendees at tonight's live Zoom webinar are encouraged to use the Zoom Q&A function, which is located on your screen, as shown in the picture on the right of the slide here. If there are any questions or comments regarding tonight's presentation that you have after tonight's live Q&A session, questions and comments can be submitted through the project email address or the phone line through Wednesday, March 27th, 2024. Again, with any voicemails, please include the project number 145-106 and your contact information so we can get back to you with any information. Attendees are also encouraged to fill out the voluntary survey to provide feedback on tonight's presentation. A link for the survey can be found in the Zoom chat or on the project webpage at portal.ct.gov/DOT/Union-145-106. So it looks like we're starting to get some questions come in. The first question is, are there any impacts to private properties anticipated? Stephanie from Connecticut DOT, would you like to answer this?
Yes, thank you, Dan. No, there will not be any private properties anticipated. We expect all work to be contained within the the DOT right of way. Thanks.
Thank you, Stephanie. We have another question from Maria. How long will construction for the bridge take? Dennis, do you want to answer this one?
Yeah, thanks, Dan. Yes, it is anticipated it'll last for 2 construction seasons. So from August 2025 to August 2027. It's approximately 2 years.
Thank you, Dennis. Okay, it looks like we have another question from Catherine. The question is, how will traffic be managed during construction? Stoplight, DOT worker? Dennis, do you want to start with this question?
Yeah, no problem, Dan. Yes, so during construction, I mentioned that there'll be alternating one-way traffic, and that will be controlled by a temporary signal. So I think, and during the construction.
Okay. Thanks, Dennis. So again, attendees are encouraged to use the Zoom Q&A function located on your screen, or by using the phone number 860-594-2020 and leaving a voicemail referencing the project number 145-106. Looks like we have a couple more questions coming in. This next question is, the bridge was hit by a truck. Was it repaired and is it safe to drive on? Dennis, would you like to answer this?
Yes, there was a bridge hit back in October of 2022. Shortly thereafter, shortly after the event, the basically bridge maintenance from DOT had repaired the bridge, and it is safe for traffic.
All right, thank you, Dennis. We have another question from Catherine. The question is, will there be any spillover of traffic onto frontage road? Dennis, would you like to start with this one?
It is not anticipated that there'll be extra traffic on frontage road. Essentially, we'll be maintaining alternating one-way traffic through the project, so there shouldn't be any additional traffic on frontage road impacted by the project.
Thank you, Dennis. Looks like we have another question here from David. The question is, will the fire department get remotes to override lights? Oh, excuse me. Will the fire department get remotes to override lights during emergencies? Dennis, do you want to start with this question?
Typically, there'll be emergency features incorporated into those designed into those temporary signals for emergency use.
All right, I would just like to go ahead and add, Mr. Eaton, that we will continue to coordinate with the fire department throughout design and especially during construction of the project.
Thank you, Dennis and Stephanie. The next question we have here from Richard. How will access to I-84 North from Route 89 North be affected? I guess, Dennis, do you want to start with this one?
Yeah, actually, Dan, if you could, I think it's slide 23, if you could fast forward to that. I think that's helpful graphic to help answer that. I guess if you're located on the south side, and during those short term closures that would be required for removing existing beams and placing new beams, traffic would have to, the bridge would be closed, so you'd actually have to go via route, basically the I-84 on-ramp eastbound and head eastbound to the next interchange at exit 73 and cross over the Connecticut 190 overpass and then get back on heading westbound and then head to exit 72, get off of that ramp. So they were able to just bypass that closure. But otherwise, as mentioned before, there'll be alternating one-way traffic with signal controls, so that northbound on 89 traffic will still be maintained.
Dennis, could you speak to the kind of towards access to that on-ramp? How I think the question might be asking more along the lines of accessing I-84 from Route 89. Will those on-ramps ever be impacted during construction or for any construction activities, or will they maintain open throughout construction?
During construction, the ramps actually will be maintained. So you'll have access to those. It's just, like I was saying, that when there's those, short duration closures, there's just a scenario where if you were on the southerly side of the closed bridge, you'd have to bypass around to get back to the north and maybe access, say, for example, if you want to go, westbound, on I-84, you'd have to go up to the next interchange and then come back around to access that. So just want to mention that. But the intention is those ramps will be active, during the, construction duration.
All right. Thank you. Looks like we have another question from Catherine. The question is, the area is part of our watershed. What kind of guarantee is there that there will be no impact during discharge of water, etc.? Stephanie, do you want to start with this one?
Yep. Hi, Catherine. Dan, if you want to go back to the environmental slide, that would be great. So, Catherine, each construction project does have to get a permit for the discharge of water during construction. And within that permit, there are basically regulations that the contractor has to meet and will be held to. So, so there will be somebody out there making sure that he is keeping to all of those discharge regulations.
And I can actually add to that, Stephanie, if you don't mind. Yeah, the other thing to keep in mind that the bid documents will incorporate any, provisions, to make sure that the contractor is, making sure that to avoid any impacts to the watershed and so forth. So there'll be provisions in place.
All right. Thank you, Stephanie and Dennis. The next question we have from Richard. My interest is to go to Sturbridge from Route 89 frequently. So I think, Dennis, could you speak more towards the access to I-84 north or I-84 eastbound?
Eastbound, yeah. Yes, I can answer that. Yeah, essentially, again, the ramps you'll have access to those ramps. You'll still be able to go, access, I-84 eastbound to get to, via 89 to get to Sturbridge heading east, further east. If that, answers the question.
Okay. Thank you, Dennis. We have another question from Catherine. The question is, how will the contractor, excuse me.
I'll go ahead and take over for Dan. The question is, how will the contractor be held to that? And how will you keep Ashford's emergency responders informed of changes in access during the project? I'm going to go ahead and make the assumption, how will the contractor be held to that, that it is in reference to the previous question for stormwater. So essentially, once this project is finished within design, then when it goes into construction, it is taken over by DOT district, and they will be out there monitoring the contractor throughout the entire construction season. And kind of the same thing with how do we keep Ashford's emergency responders informed. So once this goes to construction and those DOT district employees take over, they will continue to coordinate with the towns for any of the construction needs. If there's changes in access or traffic or anything like that, they keep in touch with you guys.
All right. Thank you, Stephanie. We have another question regarding the water. Will they be testing the water? Stephanie, did you want to start with this one?
I'm not positive what you mean by what would they be testing for. I'm assuming that you would be referring to sediment. And the answer to that is no. Well, maybe Dennis or somebody else can answer that a little bit better. But as far as like testing for particles within the water, I mean, it would be visual, right? They would go out and
Oh,
I'm sorry, I'm continuing to look at another question that came in referring to the water in the watershed.
okay, that's a clarification, yeah.
Yeah, clarification.
I can try to
Yep, thank you,
add
Dennis.
some more to that answer. Essentially, as mentioned before, we're required, there'll be a permit that's required to go through Connecticut Deep. So during that process, all the proper protocols and if testing is required and what type of testing will be built into the contract documents and will be performed. Specifically, if they test the water, I'm not expert on that particular area, but there will be, through the permitting process and through the development of the contract drawings before the contractor gets out there, there'll be protocols that are necessary to protect that watershed, whatever that takes.
All right. Thank you, Dennis and Stephanie. We have another question from Alan. The question is, will Morey Pond be impacted in any way? So maybe that's what the watershed questions are referring to, is any impacts to the pond, the watershed, the pond, that surrounding area. Oh, I guess, yeah, Dennis, do we anticipate a lot of discharge or water handling with this project?
No, I mean, based on the project limits and what we're anticipating for project limits, the limits are kind of contained where we're not going basically beyond the ramps or needing to go do any work on especially that the on ramp for I-84 eastbound, which is basically adjacent to the Morey Pond. So we're not performing any activities that would impact basically the pond. And obviously we'll have all the necessary erosion control provisions taken into account for all the areas that are basically exposed and so forth during the construction activities. So essentially, no, we're not anticipating that.
Right. Okay. So thank you for answering. It sounds like, so we don't anticipate impacts to any area of the watershed, including Morey Pond. It looks like there's one more question here, clarifying that Morey Pond is just one area of the watershed. So, okay. So at this time, attendees are still, if there's still more questions regarding the discharge permit, the water course, or any other questions about the project or the presentation tonight, attendees are encouraged to continue to use that Q&A function located on your screen through the Zoom Live webinar. Questions can also be submitted through the project email dotproject0145-0106@cet.gov. Questions can also be left on the phone voicemail line at the number 860-594-2020. Please reference the project number 145-106, and please include your contact information in any voicemails. It looks like we have another question that came in from Roger. What is the impact to I-84? Dennis, do you want to take this one?
Yes, I can do that. Thanks, Dan. Essentially, I-84 traffic will be maintained for the majority of the construction duration. There will be some short-term or short duration interruptions to the traffic when they're basically the contractors utilizing a crane and doing a lot of overhead work in the vicinity of the bridge. Basically, that the traffic will be closed and won't be allowed to pass under the structure. However, it'll be easily bypassed by taking basically the exit ramp and then going back on the on-ramp, kind of bypass around. And that's true for both I-84 eastbound and westbound when those short-term closures are in effect. Essentially, I-84 is maintained and they'll be bypassed with the ramps. So they're still going to be maintained.
All right. Thank you, Dennis. All right, looks like we have another question that came in through the Q&A function on Zoom. The question is, or I guess the comment is, Ashford needs our emergency services notified whenever access is changed. Stephanie, would you like to respond to this? Stephanie, I'm sorry, you are muted.
My apologies. Yes, Catherine, so we will go ahead and coordinate with district, and I will ensure that they are aware that you guys need to be notified whenever access changes. That is typically something that they would do regardless, but I'll just go ahead and throw that out there so that they have an extra heads up for it.
All right, thank you, Stephanie. We have another question from Richard. The question is, during construction, will there be any weight limits on the one-way sections? Dennis, would you like to answer this?
Yes, there will not be any extra weight limit restrictions for these sections. And especially for the new portions will be designed for all the required legal and permit vehicles. And there's currently no weight restrictions on the existing superstructure.
All right. Thank you, Dennis. I don't see any questions at the moment. Again, if you have any questions, please continue to use the Q&A function on your Zoom screen. Questions can still be submitted by email and by the phone voicemail. Both of those, that contact information is on the screen right now. Again, if there's any questions or comments on tonight's presentation that you think of after the live Q&A session, all comments and questions can be submitted through the email address or the phone line through Wednesday, March 27th, 2024. Again, if you have questions or comments coming after tonight's live Q&A session, please include the project number 145-106 and include your contact information so we can get back to you with the correct information. Attendees tonight are also encouraged to take that voluntary survey. You know, we always like feedback on these presentations and try to improve how we inform the public and get information out to you guys. So again, that link to the survey can be found in the chat. It's also located on the project webpage at portal.ct.gov/DOT union 145-106. I think we'll give it another minute here for any more questions. I don't see anything at the moment. Again, that survey link is posted in the chat. All right, well, we are not seeing any more questions at this time. Again, if there's any questions after tonight's webinar ends, please use the project email address, which is dotproject0145-0106@cet.gov, or leave a voicemail at the number 860-594-2020. And please reference the project number 145-106. Again, the comment period for tonight's presentation is through Wednesday, March 27th, 2024. At this time, I'd like to thank all attendees for joining us tonight. And everyone have a good night.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.